Hello. Finally, the series that you've been waiting for is here, and we're going to get right into the matter of things, which is Module 1, the foundations of a great speech. Now, most people have always been wanting to speak because you've got something that you want to say. Either you've gone through life, and usually you know that there are circumstances that have happened to you, either in terms of entertainment, or you just want to educate, or you want to inspire. And one of the things that you need to understand is, why are you getting into the art of speech? Why do you want to articulate yourself? And before you can get into it, before you can get excited, first of all, you have to understand the foundations of a speech. Because remember, people just don't get on stage and begin to speak. First of all, you have to understand, why are you speaking? So, first things first, number one is the goals of your speech. Why are you a speaker? Because there's no way you're going to start building a house without first and without necessarily understanding the structures that go into building a house. Because I can tell you, this all of this sounds really natural, and I know it looks natural, but it's not natural because the magic happens behind the scenes. So first off, you have to get into the habit of speaking. The moment you get into the habit of speaking, that is why I usually say that when you want to speak, the art of public speaking is really in the ability to speak. There's no way you can want to become a good swimmer and think that you're going to read materials and then you become a good swimmer. You have to take the plunge. You have to put yourself where it matters most. Take the plunge and then you begin to speak. Now, the moment you have started speaking, what are the things that you need to consider? First off, you need to consider the structure of your speech. What is the purpose of your speech? Why are you speaking? You know me from social media. A lot of you have seen me on social media, and the reason why I speak, I'm not a good entertainer, but also there are different kinds of speakers. By the way, first of all, I want to start with you. The natural speakers, lawyers are natural public speakers. Pastors or men of the clock are natural public speakers, and then we have obviously public speakers, and then we have politicians who are also public speakers. We have comedians, and comedy is the single most powerful art or most powerful tool when it comes to public speaking. It's difficult when it comes to comedy because you have to get on stage and make sure that you tickle people for each and every moment you're on stage. However, if you want to speak, especially when it comes to saying, you have to understand that you're an entertainer. So as you entertain, what are the things that you need to do? Because you have to read the room. Emotional intelligence is very important. Who are you speaking to? And where are you speaking? Because, by the way, most of the time, people would find themselves in a funeral. And then that is the time where you want to do the most when it comes to speaking. That is not the time for you to wax lyrical. That is not the time for you to show your prowess when it comes to speaking, especially if you're not the bereaved. That is the time where you limit, you make it short and sweet. In fact, the hallmark of a good public speaker is your ability to keep it short and sweet. Now, once you have understood why are you speaking, the purpose of your speech, are you there to entertain? Obviously, I'm not an entertainer. You know that I educate, and once in a while I try to inspire. Two, you have to align your goals to the speech. What do you want people to learn when they are doing, when you're giving them the speech? So, for instance, myself, every once in a while on social media, I talk about self mastery as it attains or it pertains to women. So, every time I prepare my speeches, or just before I get into the lens, in front of the lens of my camera, usually I have to ask myself, what is it I want women to gain from this conversation that I'm about to have with them for maybe 5 or 6 minutes? And usually it could be something like commitment to yourself. Sometimes it could be things like discipline, could be respect. It could be just being the sort of woman who goes on to make sure that she can earn her keep. I usually have an objective as to why I am saying what I'm saying. So you have to align your goals. And then finally, you have to make sure that your goals are smart. You don't want to be a public speaker who's dumb. So you have to make sure that you have got smart objectives. What are these smart objectives? Number one, it has to be specific. What is it that you want people to get exactly? Number two, it has to be measurable. So, with this thing that I'm doing right here, giving you these tips on public speaking, it is my intention that within 6 months, because this is a self paced kind of video, I expect that within 6 months, you should have put yourself in the trenches and you have the ability right now, or at least after 6 months, to go out there and begin to speak. Because there is no way you can become a good speaker by listening to this video. You have to go out there and put yourself in the trenches where you speak. And I kid you not, you're going to have some jitters. It's going to be a little bit tough, but with time, you're going to get the hang of it. So it has to be measurable. You have to go back home and analyze your speech and realize that maybe I'm not good at this. And by the way, the first time you're doing something, you're going to be horrible at it. So you have to learn how to be lenient. You have to learn how to forgive yourself, how to be compassionate, and how to show yourself loads and loads of empathy. So, the two, we've talked about measurable, and then it has to be achievable. You have to do things that are achievable. That is why you cannot start going to the gym and then within the first day you want to lift 10 kgs. I, who are we lying to? Who are we lying to? You have to start with maybe 2 kgs, the small dumbbells. That is where you start before a couple of weeks or maybe months. That's when you're able to lift 10 kgs, 6 kgs, 8 kgs. So it has to be achievable. Make sure you start with the small steps, baby steps. And then fourth, it has to be realistic. Make sure they're realistic and relevant. The thing that you're about to say, make sure it is relevant. You don't want to go and speak to high schoolers, for instance, at a school somewhere in the village where I come from, and then you want to tell them that, if they work hard and work really hard, they're going to go to Yale and Harvard. When you know and they know, because who are you kidding? They know that the best student in the school every once in a while scores a B plus. Most of them are at around D, C minus, C if they perform really well. So sometimes you have to make sure that what you're trying to say is realistic and relevant, because they know that actually you're lying. Most of them have never even been to the city, let alone knowing where Harvard or Yale is on a map. So you have to understand the audience that you're speaking to. But then again, if you go to speak to students in Alliance High School, then you can tell them about, work hard, success is achievable. If you do this, that, and the third, you're going to go to Harvard and Princeton. Because some of them understand where the United States is on a map. They can place where Harvard is on a map. So when you're speaking to kids from a disenfranchised environments, their experiences are different. For some of them, you just have to tell them that they just need to stay in school until they're done with high school. That's the best that they can do. So you have to understand what you're saying. Is it relevant, or are you just speaking for the sake of speaking? And then finally, it has to be time bound. Make sure that your speech, if you're supposed to speak for 20 minutes, please do 20 minutes. And I kid you not, most of the time you're bound to go off script and you're going to use more time. But like we've mentioned in the beginning, a good public speaker has to make it short and sweet. If you're asked to speak for 20 minutes, do 18. The hosts will love you as well as the audience will love you, because now they will yearn for more and they didn't see it coming that you're about to end the speech. So these are the tenets and the foundations of a speech. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.